Hello and welcome to this episode of Grant Thornton's In Conversation With podcast. I'm Waite, People and Culture Director, and trainee recruitment is something I'm really passionate about, and it's where I started my career with the firm back in 2010. I'm joined today by Jo and Katie, and we're here to talk about everything professional qualifications and exams and training as an accountant at Grant Thornton. But before we get started, let's start with some introductions. Katie, if I can come to you first, please.
Hi, I'm Katie Maleham. So I am an audit associate based in the Milton Keynes office. I started my journey with Grant Thornton about 3 years ago, just under, on the graduate scheme in audit, so studying towards my ACA qualification. And in a couple of weeks, I actually have my final exam for ACA, so I'm coming to the end of my training programme now, which is really exciting.
Excellent. And Jo?
Yeah, hi, I'm Jo. I'm a director here at Grant Thornton, and I look after all of our technical training across the 3 service lines, as well as our professional qualifications and our apprenticeships. I am very passionate about all of this, and I joined myself as an audit associate many years ago at another firm, and I did my training contract as well and worked through all of the exams and all of the training that comes with a training agreement.
So you've seen it from both sides?
I have seen it from both sides, yeah.
Excellent. So before we dive into the content, let's start with some easy questions today. So if you can think about 3 words that describe your career at Grant Thornton to date, and the 3 skills that you have that make you really successful at your role. Katie, we'll start with you.
I would say to describe my career at Grant Thornton would be challenging, but then also very rewarding and very social as well. And then I would say to describe skills that make me good at my job would be collaboration, working in teams, attention to detail, that's very important within audit, I think, and also adaptability.
Jo, and the 3 words that describe your career at Grant Thornton to date, and the 3 skills that you bring to your role that make you successful.
So I would say very collaborative. I think that's something that I am day to day in terms of job that I love here at Grant Thornton. And I think to be collaborative, you need to be open. I also think you need to be honest, which allows you to have a really team-based approach to everything that you're doing. You can give good opinions, get good opinions, work together really well. And I think confidence linked to self-belief. I think you have to really believe in yourself, but also believe in what you do day to day to really go at something with passion.
Great. So given we're here to talk about the different qualifications and professional training at Grant Thornton, I think the logical place is to start with yourself, Jo. So what are the different training pathways that we have available here at Grant Thornton, and what are the kind of the trainee routes that someone thinking about a career in accountancy could explore at Grant Thornton?
So we have a range of really good career routes for anybody looking to join accountancy, tax or advisory, so audit, tax and advisory. We have routes for school leavers, so you can come and join a programme with us for 4.5, sometimes 5 years. We have careers for graduates, so that's typically over a 3-year programme. Depending on whether you're joining audit, tax and advisory, of course, there's a whole wealth of qualifications that you can study. Some of the biggies in audit would be to study our ICAW ACA qualification, which Katie, you just mentioned you're studying partway through. You could do ICAS if you're based up in Scotland, which is our Scottish equivalent of the ACA qualification. And we have a whole host of other AAT, for example, qualifications that you could do if you were in audit. Across tax, you would be looking at a little bit more tax-focused technical qualifications. So we have things like the ATT and the CTA. Advisory mostly follow suit with audit. But what I would say is that the programmes are quite consistent, albeit different qualifications. You're still learning that technical aptitude, the skills and the behaviours needed to become a good, credible advisor in our field. And the programme durations, 4.5 years for a school leaver or 3 years for a graduate, again, typically quite consistent so that you can form that peer-to-peer network, irrespective of whether you're audit, tax and advisory, and just enjoy your career at Grant Thornton.
It's one of the best things I understand about being on a programme like ours is that sense of cohort, being part of a bigger peer group. How did you experience that, Katie, when you joined, kind of joining that kind of larger cohort?
Yeah, definitely. It felt really supportive, and it was nice to feel like you're not the only person starting a new job and a new qualification. So I've actually become really close with the people that I started with, and from day one, we've sat exams together, we've been at work together, and it's nice that we've all sort of followed each other through to sitting our final exam together soon. So that was really nice to have that network, and also people to sort of help you if you had questions on exams. You know, we'd set up sort of informal study groups after work in the office sometimes and bounce questions or ideas off of each other, which I found really helpful. So it was really good to feel like you're not on your own and you've got people and friends there to support you.
And Katie and I were saying the other day, actually, what's really interesting, she's talking here about her networks and building out those friendships as she's been through her qualification. And I was saying it's funny because for me now, those networks that I created back then, all those years ago, they're now the partners and directors of big firms, either within professional services or out in industry, wherever people have moved once they've completed their training agreements at whichever firm they completed them with. And so you now have a network of very senior people that can help you evolve and enhance your career as it moves. It's one of the best bits, I think, about doing a training agreement.
And Katie, you said that you're almost at the end. You've kind of done most of the hard work, and I'm guessing it's been full on at times and lots of hard work and lots of juggling and balancing client work, study, social commitments, maybe not always been able to do all of that at the same time. I guess, how have you made it work?
Yeah, it's definitely a commitment, and I think you sort of need to appreciate the fact that you are studying for a qualification that's going to be with you for life. So, you know, you do have to put the time in. And I think what worked for me was just sort of planning around your study habits and how you know you work best. So for me, that's weekends in the morning. You know, I'm useless in the evenings after work. I just want to relax and do my own thing. But, you know, I've got some time free on a Sunday morning where I can sit and do some studying. So that's what works for me, and that's how I structured my days. Everyone's different, so some people would do it in the evenings to keep their weekends free. So I think it's just being organised and building a study plan around your habits. I think the study leave that Grant Thornton give you is really helpful. So before your exam, you'll have a certain amount of days to just completely be separate from work and have that time to either be at college or at home self-studying. And that's really useful for me because you don't have to worry about your clients, you can put your out of office on, you know, you just focus on your exams and get your head down, which I found really useful. I definitely appreciated those days. So I think they're probably my best tips to managing the balance of how to work study in with exams.
I think the really great point that you raised there was around this need to be disciplined, and I'm guessing you've had to be really disciplined over the last couple of years, Katie. Are there any other top tips that you can give to those about to join in terms of mindset that they need to bring to the training and their study to help them be successful?
Yeah, definitely. I would say just be open-minded and just throw yourself into it. I think asking questions and just being present is really important, and just appreciating that, you know, this is going to be new, everyone is new and everyone has done it before, so you will have this network of people above you who are 2 or 3 years, even managers who've done their training agreements, so everyone's been through it, and I think that's a really useful sort of fountain of knowledge I found. If I was struggling with something like an exam, for instance, I'd ask a colleague a few levels above me and they'd be like, oh yeah, I found these notes really helpful, or this way of learning, or these examples really helpful. So I think just making sure you're present, asking questions, getting really involved in the day-to-day will really help you when you start your journey.
I guess there's a level of support that the firm provides as well, Jo, isn't there, that kind of goes alongside that mindset that our new starters need to bring to this. What does that look like?
Yeah, we've crafted a programme that we think will help really get the best out of all of those that join our organisation. And actually support, as Katie was just talking about, is a huge part of that. You need to make sure that you have a nice network of support around you. We have, I guess, first and foremost, a set of really clear policies around what it takes to get through these exams, what it takes to be successful across the duration of your training agreement, but also to be successful, what can we give you, and in exchange, what do we expect from you? So actually for anyone joining the organisation, they know nice and clearly up front, this is what I need to do and this is what I'll get in return. We have a really brilliant early careers team who provide nice wraparound support to all of our associates, because actually it's more than just passing the exams. It's about, when are the exams going to be, how much study leave will I get, how can I work with whatever neurodivergence I've got or whatever particular preferred learning style that I might have, and what does a blended delivery programme look like? Will it be online? Will it be in a classroom? All these questions. You can join the organisation knowing that there's an early careers team there who will help you schedule everything, who will help you know where your materials are, how best to learn, and what support is available to you in the event that you might need it.
Talk to me more about the blended learning programme. What does that look like?
Yeah, so like I said, we like to have a programme that everybody can feel comfortable with, that gets the best out of everybody. And we recognise that for many people that might be in classroom learning, and for a range of other people that might be self-led learning or an online live environment. So we have all of those different types of delivery across each module that you might go through as part of your ICAW programme or your ICAS programme or your ATT CTA if you're in tax. And we make sure that you have a good range of all of those things just to get the best from you across each module. We also quite uniquely, unlike other firms, for particular modules as you progress through your qualification, we give you the choice. So we'll say, actually, unlike other organisations, you can either do this as an online live or you can go to college. How do you learn best? What sorts of preferred learning styles have you got and what works for you? Which would you prefer to have? And you know, we tried back along, and Katie, you might remember, we tried back along to just stick with one or the other. We thought, actually, post-pandemic, maybe we'll do everything online, or maybe we'll do everything in a classroom. And we polled all of our associates across the organisation, and we said, how would you like to learn? Because how you like to learn matters to us. It's your programme. And it was 49%, 51%. We had prize winners studying at home. We had prize winners in college. So actually, we've stuck to our choice. You direct your learning and you make the best of it where you can.
And what about that shift from school or university to studying for professional qualification? What do our new starters need to be thinking about in terms of making that shift successfully? Katie, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. It's very different, I guess, from university in a way that you're not now just purely studying. You know, you have got to manage the work aspect with the study. So I guess you have less time and less sort of choice over when you can study, but then also the content and the style of delivery is quite similar to a university tutorial or a classroom environment. So I found that actually quite reassuring, and having like the tutors in college to ask questions to was really useful. So I think it's similar sort of, it's not as though the content is drastically harder or that the anything about the way that the college is delivered is any different. I think it's just that mindset of balancing your time and balancing both. But yeah, I definitely found the college useful, and as Jo said about the flexibility, that worked really well for me. So sometimes at the start of my programme I went into college and I found sort of the learning through osmosis or learning through the people around me really helpful. But then as the exams got a bit more technical and I got my head down a bit more, I'd rather be at home because I didn't have to commute. You know, before and after college I could log on to my laptop and just work and study in that time. So that was really useful to me. So I think it is very flexible in a way, and you can build it around what works for you, which is really helpful.
Jo, looking at our really successful trainees who make that transition really, really well, how do they do it and how do they make it work?
I do think there's a level of commitment that's needed for these qualifications, all of these qualifications. I do think you need to be really driven. You know, you're not going to get anything handed to you anymore. You're self-directed learning. Yes, we'll give you the study leave and all of the materials and we'll make sure you've got everything you need. But ultimately, you have to drive that revision. You have to make sure that you're balancing your work, your life and your studies effectively. And, you know, for some exams, you might find them easier than another. It depends on what you're good at and what you've done previously. You might find, actually, this exam's not so bad. I can really balance everything quite well. And then you might find another exam, oh gosh, this is really, really challenging. I'm finding this really difficult. For me, anything that had maths, frankly, like quite challenging maths or formula in, I found extremely difficult. Anything that was language-based, the law papers or the business strategy, those sorts of things, I thrived. So I had to do a lot more work. So I just think for those that are going to be successful, it's believe in yourself. It doesn't matter whether you've done a related course previously. It doesn't matter if you've come from an accountancy background or history background or languages, whatever it might be. You have every ability of being successful on these programs, but you must work hard for it. And you must also speak up and ask for the advice of others around you. You know, you've got all of your peers, all of your senior staff. We've all done these qualifications. So if you're finding something difficult or something simply hasn't clicked, that's okay, but speak up and ask for some help and you'll be absolutely fine.
Someone once described it to me as these qualifications not being for the faint of heart, but the feeling of reward when you complete it and you're fully qualified is like nothing that they'd ever felt before. What was that feeling like, Jo, after the kind of the years and years of hard work, the study, the revision, the saying no to social things because you had an exam the next week, and then all of a sudden you're qualified and you've done it? What was that feeling like?
Well, I was so relieved and I was so proud. I hadn't come from an accountancy or business or maths background of any kind. I'd always done languages and English and humanities, and I genuinely from the get-go thought, I don't know if I can do this. This is extremely hard. But I worked and I worked and I worked, as we just talked about. I gave it my absolute all. And it's tiring, you know, it's difficult because you've got a busy job, that's new. You've got studies, that's different. Irrespective of what you've done before, it's different and it's tiring. But you get to the end and you're part of this super prestigious club of chartered accountants, and it's such a good feeling of I've done this, but I now need a rest from exams.
I bet. And Katie, you're almost at that point where you maybe might get a rest from exams for a while, and you're probably starting to think about what's next for you and your career. Where do you see yourself going next, Katie?
So there's a lot of opportunities, I think, for me to consider, and I haven't quite decided where I'm going to go yet, but I definitely know that there's a lot out there. So I've got some friends who are now working as assistant managers in audit on, you know, leading big clients that are sort of household names, which is pretty cool. And some of them are even now in charge of an audit that they audited a few years ago when they first started, which is really cool to see how they've sort of learnt more every year and now they can be in charge of that audit. So that would be something that I think I'd quite like to do. But then there's other opportunities, you know, outside of your department that you've trained in. So you can do sort of secondments to other internal departments. So I've got a friend who's moved from audit to corporate finance to try that out for a bit. Or you can even do secondments to sort of other Grant Thornton offices abroad. So I know a girl who's just returned from Grant Thornton in the Cayman Islands, which is pretty cool. I know. So there's a lot of opportunities. So I'm going to have a little look, I think, hopefully this summer once I've qualified and see where I'm going to go, really.
So Katie, I'm assuming that over your years with us here at Grant Thornton, the roles evolved, the kind of work that you get involved with has evolved over those years as well. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that and how things look different now to how maybe they did when you first joined?
Yeah, definitely. So I think as you progress and gain more experience, you definitely get more responsibility, which is really good, but then the work gets a bit more technical. So I found it actually got a bit more interesting as I sort of studied more and then was able to apply those skills that I'd learned from my technical sort of study into my role in audit. So as you sort of progress, you get that independence and you become confident in your knowledge that you can start, you know, leading teams or coaching the new starters. And I found that really rewarding because it felt like I'd built on that knowledge and I was able to sort of then pass that on to the next cohort, and I was also able to sort of push myself and challenge myself to do some more technical work as well. So yeah, I think it definitely gets a bit more interesting as you progress and more challenging, but in the best way.
Sounds like there've been some really interesting moments and some kind of opportunities for you really to do some interesting work. And I'm guessing there might have been more challenging moments as well where you've needed to tap into the support that the firm provides. When might that have been the case and what did that look like, Katie?
Yeah, definitely. So for me, I am visually impaired, which is something that I have never let sort of hold me back and stop me from things, but it is something I'm conscious of that I sometimes need things a bit differently. So for example, when I sat my exams at school, I'd have my scripts in large print and I'd have additional time to sit my exams. And before I started at Grant Thornton, I was really worried that I wasn't going to be able to sort of get that same support. So I contacted the early careers team before I'd even started and sort of told them I was a bit worried. And they were really useful in contacting the exam board to help me set up access arrangements before I'd even started. So when I walked through the door on day one, I knew that all that support was there for me. I had my extra time, had my exams on a computer format so that I could zoom in. And I just felt so much more comfortable with that, which helped me free up my space in my mind to focus purely on the exams. So that was really great and I really appreciated the support they could give me. Then sort of throughout my training contract, if there was ever anything I struggled with, I could always reach out to the team and they'd help me put adaptations in place in work to help me sort of combat that. So it was definitely a good collaboration with the team, but I always felt like there was someone there to help me build a solution to any problems that I was facing.
That's great, thanks Katie. And Jo, final question. So somebody might be watching this who's due to join Grant Thornton very, very soon. In terms of preparing for joining a prestigious programme like ours and really kind of putting the right foot forwards. What can they be thinking about or doing as they prepare to join?
So I think reflect on your personal brand and reflect on what it is that you're about to embark on. You know, what do you want people to think and feel about you when they meet you on that first day? You know, if look the part, feel the part, research your qualification, know what it is that you're about to undertake. Know what services broadly, you know, we're not expecting anybody to be an expert, absolutely not. Research what it is broadly you expect to be doing day to day. And if you can, have a think about your Excel skills. Have a think about what basic bookkeeping might be. No obligations to arrive as an expert, absolutely not. We will equip you with all of those skills, but just reflect on your professionalism, your personal brand, the impact you want to have, and what it is, broadly speaking, you're about to undertake, and just come with a big old smile and a sense of pride that you've got this position and that you're joining us, and we will do the rest.
Excellent. Thank you to both of you for joining us today. I'm sure your insights and stories is going to really help our new cohort and anybody thinking about joining one of our future cohorts of trainees at Grant Thornton. Thank you very much for joining this episode of In Conversation With at Grant Thornton. We look forward to welcoming you to a future episode very soon.